Hi, and welcome to Best Practices for Video and Audio Recording Solo Piano. I'm so glad I can be a part of Piano Celebration Week and want to give a special thanks to directors Dino Mulić and Sangmi for inviting me to participate. Today we'll be discussing equipment, recording techniques, and editing tips. Despite experience, this class will give you the tools you need to make a great video, regardless of equipment or budget limitations. So with that, let's dive right in. Equipment. In order to create quality video recordings, you'll need the following equipment: a camera, a stand or a tripod for that camera, a light source, microphones, and a computer with video editing software. Let's start with cameras. Ideally, you'll want something that can record at a resolution of at least 1080p, also known as Full HD resolution. If you can, get your hands on a camera that can record in 4K. You'll also want to make sure your camera can record at least 24 frames per second, or FPS. Most likely, you already have a device that meets this criteria. Most smartphones and tablets have cameras built in that provide the resolution and frame rate you need for video recordings. If you aren't sure about the specifications of your device's camera, you can check by Googling your phone plus the word specs, such as Google Pixel 3 specs or iPhone 10 specs. Click on a search result and scroll to the camera specs section. There, you'll see a resolution and frame rate info, such as 4K at 30 FPS. This means it can record in a 4K resolution at 30 frames per second. You'll want to focus on the rear camera specs, as those tend to be better cameras on smartphones and tablets. If you don't have a smartphone or tablet, or if you want to use something besides your device, you could get a Full HD camcorder for around $250. I recommend the Canon Vixia HF-R80 or the Panasonic HC V180K. There are three other reasons why you might want to consider getting a camcorder. The first is to have more control over zooming. Because camcorders are designed primarily for video, they have great zoom control compared to smartphones and tablets, where you have to use your fingers to adjust the zoom. Plus, camcorders are most likely going to give you a far wider range of zoom than a smart device. The second reason to opt for a camcorder is storage space. Video files are big. With my projects, I can easily fill up an 8 terabyte hard drive in just a few months. If your smartphone only has 16 or 32 gigs of space, you might consider a camcorder that has an SD card slot like the Canon or Panasonic I mentioned earlier, so you don't have to worry about filling up your phone's hard drive space. Along those same lines, a third reason you might want to consider a camcorder is for ease of transferring files. It can be a little more complex to get your files off a smart device and onto your computer. You might need to upload the files to a cloud server like Google Drive or iCloud, then download them to your computer, which can be a pain if you have a lot of files. Again, having an SD card that you can swap between computer and camera is typically a lot faster and simpler for transferring files. Tripods and stands. In order to record a great video, you need control over the placement of your camera. You can get a simple tripod for your phone, tablet, or camcorder for under $30 on Amazon. With tripods, you want something that has decent height adjustment. Lighting. Depending on where you're planning to do your recordings, you might consider getting a ring light. Smartphones, tablets, and camcorders are really good at adjusting automatically for lighting, but ultimately, if the space you're recording in is dim, the video isn't going to turn out as well as it could with good lighting. You don't need to invest in lighting, but here's a tip. If you need to get a tripod, there are a plethora of companies that sell ring lights and tripods together. I would recommend getting one of those. You can find lots of options on Amazon.com. Microphones. So we've covered video, but let's talk about audio. I would recommend the Zoom H4n Pro. The audio quality is really wonderful, and it has XLR inputs to allow for 2 additional mics if you ever want to expand down the road. If a microphone isn't within your budget, you can probably get by with the microphone on your smartphone, tablet, or camcorder. However, be aware that the microphones compress the audio considerably, so you won't get a wide range of dynamics. Computers and software. You'll need a computer that can handle video editing. Recommended software includes Adobe Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. Premiere Pro is what I use, but DaVinci Resolve is great and it's a free alternative. iMovie is another option you can look into if you're a Mac user. If you aren't sure if your computer is able to handle the software, you can Google the system requirements for any given program and compare them to your machine. Recording. Okay, so you've got your equipment and you're ready to record. Here are some things to keep in mind when recording. Choosing a location. As pianists, you might be limited as to where you can record, just due to the nature of the size of your instrument. Ideally, you want a bright space and something with consistent lighting, as well as a space that's going to sound great. If you're recording in a space with windows, you'll want to record on a sunny or cloudy day. Try to avoid a partially cloudy day, as they can greatly affect lighting as clouds pass over the sun. The space you're recording in should also be quiet. Avoid locations where you can hear traffic or other outdoor sounds. Remove any clocks that tick and turn off ceiling fans. Do everything in your control to make the space silent when you aren't playing. Lighting. Make sure to have the camera between you and the main source of light. If the main source of light is behind you, the camera will underexpose your image and you'll appear as a silhouette, or it will overexpose the background. Audio. If you have separate mics, place them 10 to 15 feet from the piano. This will give you a clear sound of the instrument while also giving you the reverberance of the room. If you want less of the room, move the mics closer to the piano. Alternatively, if you want more of the room, move the mics further away. Be sure to test the audio by recording a sample of the loudest spot of your performance. If the audio is clipping, bring the levels down on your microphones. Do not assume the mic levels are good to go. You want the levels to hover between -20 and -6 decibels. Framing your shot. First things first, record in landscape, or horizontally, not in portrait. The only time you should record in portrait is if you are only using the video for social media platforms like Instagram stories or TikTok, where the platforms are designed for recording videos in portrait. Audition videos and videos that you're planning to post on YouTube or other places on the internet should always be recorded in landscape. You want to be at most straight on with the keys, but I prefer to place the camera a little to the left and above the keys so you can see the hands more clearly. Make sure to zoom in or place the camera close enough so that you remove any excess space around the piano. If you want the shot to be tighter, you can zoom in and record from the waist up. Again, avoid dead space behind the performer and avoid cutting off the performer at the ankles or knees. If recording an audition video, be sure to follow the guidelines provided in the audition application. Once you have your shot framed, do a test recording to make sure everything looks the way you intend. Watch closely for shadows on the performer's face. If you need to, add a circle light or even a desk lamp on the performer's face to keep it uniformly lit. After you hit record on the video and audio equipment, but before you begin your performance, slate the track by clapping once. This will allow you to easily sync audio and video later in the editing process. You should do this even if you're recording audio and video to the same device, as it's fairly common for devices to have audio and video off by a few frames. When recording, give yourself 5 to 10 seconds on both sides of the performance. If you start too soon or end too early, you won't have time to add transitions in editing. Act like it's a live performance. For the second half of this video, I thought it might be useful to show you step by step how I would edit a video of a piano recording. Some of what you're going to see for the second half of this video, I thought it might be useful for you to see step by step how I would edit a piano video recording. Some of what you're going to see is a little more advanced, and you're probably not there yet, but as you continue to hone your video editing skills, some of this will be really useful later on. Again, the applications I'm using are the Adobe Creative Cloud. Today you'll be seeing me use Premiere Pro and Adobe Audition, along with the Adobe Media Encoder. So with that, let's jump right in. Okay, so we're going to start with a new project in Premiere Pro. And I'm just going to choose where I put that project. And this is arbitrary where I'm putting it, so don't worry about that. But there's my project folder, and then I'm going to name this Sample Piano Recording. Okay. Great, so my project is opened, and the first thing I want to do is create a new sequence. A sequence is just a timeline, a video that you're creating within a project. So you can have multiple videos within a single project, and you'll see how that works later. So the name of my sequence is Sample Piano Recording Single Shot. And I've got a sequence setting set up at 1080p at 29.97 frames per second, which is what my project was recorded at. So I'm going to hit OK. And great, so I've got my sequence here. That's the icon for a sequence, but I'm going to create a sequence bin because I'm going to have more than one sequence. So I'm creating a sequence bin. I'll just drag that in. Great, now let's get our video and audio in there. So I recorded 4 different angles for this piece. We're going to start with one, but eventually I'll need all 4. So I'm just going to drag this entire video folder in. You can see it creates a video bin with all of my videos in there. And I also want to bring in the audio from that. And I know that it's this track 3 that we're going to be working with today. So I'll just pull that individual file in. To keep things clean, I'm going to just create an audio bin as well. Great. Okay, so I've got my assets. I got my sequence. Let's start building. I believe this is the wide shot. Yeah, so this is the wide shot on the from this camera angle. This is what I want for my single shot. So I'm gonna pull this video into our timeline, and you can ignore this. It's saying it does not match sequence settings, but I have the sequence settings set as I want. So I'm gonna say keep existing settings. And if I double click on here are my audio layers and here are my video layers, you can see it's all the way down here because this camera in particular records in surround sound, which is not pertinent to this project. I'm going to be deleting this audio, but that's why it's a little bit lower, and you can see that 5.1. And let's pull in my audio too. So just to keep these next to each other so it's easier to see, let me expand that by double clicking. And first thing I want to do is line up the audio and video. And what I'm looking for is waveforms that I can match up. And it looks like this is where the recording started. So I'm going to drag this over pretty close. You can see, okay, now it's lining up pretty well. And I can see here this little peak in the audio. That's probably going to be my slate where she clapped. And yeah, I can see that that is. So I'm going to hit the plus key on my keyboard to zoom in. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to find where she claps in the video. Okay, so she did a clap there, and then here's the one I'm looking for. I asked her to clap this way. And now if I grow 1 frame at a time, I can actually see where she clapped. Right there. Okay. So that's where I want the audio to sound. So now I'm going to mute the audio from the video file because I don't need that audio, and I just want to listen for the clap in the good audio that I recorded with my microphones. That's this green track here. I can see it's right here, so it's quite a few frames off right now. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's way too many. Okay, so I'm going to drag it over and get it closer. There we go. Now let's try. And that's right on. You can hear there's a very tiny click right there, but the main clap happens 1 frame second later. And that's, if I'm going to err, I want to err on the audio just coming a tiny bit after the video because we're used to that being far away from something we expect to hear the audio a little bit after the video. So it's okay that it's 1 frame, the main sound of the clap is 1 frame after her hands clap. That seems pretty consistent with what we would hear in real life. Great, so I've got the audio and video synced up, and it looks like it is in good the whole way through. So I'm essentially done with this audio now. which means that I can unlink. So I can right click and say unlink, and that unlinks the audio and video, and I can just hit delete and get rid of that video or that audio because we don't need it for that anymore. So I moved up the audio file to the top audio 1 layer so the video and audio are right next to each other. Great. So now what we want to do is find where the take actually starts. So I'm just going to scrub through. I'm just clicking and dragging this cursor. It looks like she was just practicing a little bit. And I think this is where the take actually starts. So now I'm going to hit plus sign to zoom in again. And to zoom out, I just hit the minus key. So I can zoom in and out of my sequence. And let's see where it starts. It starts at 1:45:17. And the last number is frames. So there's 30 frames in every second, right? We're filming at 30 frames per second. So that number will always go up to 29 before resetting to 0. So I'm 17 frames into that. So I'm going to back it up a little bit. And I'm going to switch over to my razor tool. And the shortcut for that is C. So I can either hit this or just push C on the keyboard. And one thing I didn't do, which I want to, is link these so they lock together. So I'm going to go back to my select tool, which is V. I can hit V or choose the select tool. I'm going to click and drag both and highlight both of these clips. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to link these two. So now they'll stay locked together and I don't have to worry about things getting synced or out of sync. Okay, so I'm going to hit C to get my razor tool. And now I'm going to cut right where the playhead is. And you can see it's cut the clip into 2. And I can click and drag and highlight everything to the left, which I know I don't need anymore. And I can just hit delete. Great, and that gets rid of all of that. So now if I push minus and zoom out, you can see the whole clip. We've got all this dead space on the left, so I'm going to actually drag this all the way over back to the 0 at the start. And now push plus to zoom back in. And we want to add a fade, right? We want to fade into our take. So, but first, let's do this first. I'm gonna right click and I want to actually edit the audio before I do anything else. So I'm gonna click Edit Clip in Adobe Audition. And this is gonna send the file to a different program that Adobe makes, which is called Audition. And this is the audio editing software. So this just takes a second for it to load. And here we go. And we're now in Adobe Audition, which you can see here. And you can see this, this is all the audio from that audio file, starting with where I cut it. So we're right at, this is where I just made that cut. And I can listen and let me make sure that you're hearing this too. Great. Okay. So I want to clean up the audio a little bit. So I'm going to zoom into a silent spot, someplace where I know there should be no sound. And you can see here that there's a little bit of room noise. We can see the levels dancing. So I'm going to highlight a good chunk of this silent space. I'm going to push Command-Shift-P, or on Windows it'd be Control-Shift-P. And this brings up an effect called noise reduction. You can also find it in your effects window up here, drop-down menu. But I'm just going to capture the noise print. And what's that doing? What that's doing is just capturing any sound that's happening during the silence. Okay, so I've captured that noise print, and now I'm going to hit select entire file so it highlights everything. And you can see reducing the noise by 60% and reduce it down about 30 decibels. So it's going to take that silence, that quote silence, analyze what sounds were being made, what the room noise is, and then reduce that down considerably. And that's a really easy way to basically just get rid of any kind of static, hiss, hums that are in the room that are constant. Obviously, the louder the room, the harder it is to get rid of it. This room was already pretty quiet, so you can see now that we have no sound coming out during this silent moment. But that effectively gets rid of any room noise. Great. So another thing we can do, if in general we're feeling like, oh, you know what, the quiets are a little too quiet, I just want to bring the levels a little more consistent to each other, I can go to Dynamics, and I have this preset, but you basically want the compressor, I have it set to -23.4 decibels and a ratio of 1.4. I haven't touched anything else, but this is just going to compress the audio a little bit, and you'll see the really high peaks are just going to come down a little bit. And you can see that those peaks that just might cause the audio to clip have come down, and now I can raise the entire audio level up considerably, so that now all of our audio is a level that's more around -12 decibels, and at most it's getting up close to -2, -3 for those really powerful moments, but nothing's clipping. Okay, great. The audio sounds pretty good, but I'll just show you. If I wanted to add some reverb, I can go to Effects, Reverb, Full Reverb. And there's some defaults here that I tend to use a lot. These medium concert halls are really nice. So let's try medium concert hall crisp. And you can see this little power sign. That means that we have this turned on right now, so I can preview it. And I actually like the way that sounds. It just adds a little nice reverb to the recording. And now I'm going to hit Command S for save, or Control S if you're on Windows. And that saves the audio file. You'll notice that it named the file extracted. This has actually created a new audio file. And so it keeps the original one. So you don't have to worry about overwriting things. If you want to redo things later, it keeps the original file and creates a different one. So let's go back to Premiere, and you can see here's my original audio file, and here's the duplicate that we just edited. So if I decided, oh, I don't like what I did, I can delete that and replace it with the original. So don't worry about ever losing your original audio. So the audio has automatically been updated already. Everything here is what we just edited in Audition. So our audio is good to go. So now let's go back to adding some transitions. If I go to Effects, we have a whole bunch of effects in here. I'm looking for video transitions, and I want to dissolve. And I like the film dissolve, so I'm going to start with that. If I just grab this little box here and drag it down to the front end of the video and release, you can see, oh, a film dissolve has been added. I believe this is a pretty quick film dissolve. What I have set as my presets is only 15 frames. That's half a second. I want this to be a little longer, so I'm going to make it twice as long and put 30 frames. You can see that the length just doubled. Now this is pretty far out from where she starts. So if I get my cursor right up to where the clip starts, you see that red arrow. I can grab and drag and move the beginning of where the clip starts to the right. And I can see where the dissolve ends. I want that to end right about where the music starts. So let's preview this. Yeah, that's pretty nice. This right here, I'll just talk about this. Right now I have it set to 1/4 quality. Let's go to full. That just talks about the preview quality. So now I can see the preview is a little crisper. Great. Okay. I should also, even though we did noise reduction, let's add an audio transition too. Constant gain is good. Constant gains, that's going to be kind of like a linear fade up. Exponential fades are going to do something more like, if you see my mouse, something like that, where it starts out pretty quiet and then suddenly gets louder. They're both good, but I usually use a constant gain. Great, that's looking really nice. So I'm going to hit minus to zoom out. Let's move our clip over to the beginning so it starts at 0. Not that that really matters, but I'm gonna scrub through. I believe this is the ending. Yeah, this is the ending of the take. Great. So let's zoom in and let's work on the ending. So we don't need anything to the right of this. So again, I'm gonna hit C, use my razor tool to cut, push V to go back to the selection tool, click and drag, highlight everything to the right, and hit delete to get rid of it. Now, a faster way you can also add clips is to highlight and just hit Shift and D. And you can see that added clips fades automatically. The thing with this is you have to have your fade length set to the however long you want it to actually be. And we don't have that set up correctly for this project. So I'm going to hit Command Z on Mac, Control Z on Windows, and undo that. And let's just do it manually. So I'm going to add my fade, my film dissolve on the video layer, and I'm going to add my constant gain on my audio layer. And let's adjust these. As I mentioned before, for a fade out, we want to do a little bit longer on a fade out. Let's try 2 seconds. So the reason why this is equate to 2 seconds is because the first number goes into the seconds and then 00 for frames. So you can see now that that's a 2 second fade out. And let's do the same thing. So instead of 100, 200 for 2 seconds. And there we go. Let's preview this. So she ends. Okay, so the fade's happening too late because she broke. She broke a little sooner than I would have liked. So let's get to where the break actually happens, maybe where that hand starts coming up. So we don't want to see that. So that's where I want the clip to end. So I'm going to click and drag so that it ends right there. And let's watch this. Much better. And it's a nice slow fade. Great. So we've basically put our video together now for this single shot. And it's looking really good. I might want to do just a little bit of color correction. So I'm gonna highlight the video and see it's got a little bit of a green tint to it. So I'm just gonna take up the tint a tiny bit and we can warm or cool down the picture. It's looking better. And can adjust the contrast and exposure a little bit. I think that's looking pretty good. Great. Okay, so that's our single shot video, and now we want to export it. So I want to highlight everything I want to export, which is the entire video here, and then I'm going to hit the / key, the / key, and you can see that my clip has now, there's a highlight here, and this is showing what I have selected for my export. Typically what I want to do is I'll zoom in hitting the + key. I want to drag this out just a few seconds past where the clip ends, otherwise the video will end right at the end of the fade out. It's nice to have a second or two of complete black afterwards. So I just extend that by a few seconds. And now what I want to do to export it is I'm going to hit either Command M for Mac or Control M for Windows. And it's going to open up our export settings. And I have this preset, but we were talking about before, we want H.264. That's going to be our MP4 file. You can see .mp4 right here. And I just want to match the source. This means that it's going to look at what the source is. You know, it's 1920 by 1080, 29.9 frames, 29.97 frames per second. And it's going to output the same thing. So you can see that those match. Okay. Great, so now if I click on the output name, I can choose where to save that. I am going to save it, I'll save it in a new folder that I'll name 21.03.09. That's when I'm recording this, and we'll just say sample piano recording. That'll create a new folder, and then I can say sample piano recording single shot. Great. And I can hit either export or queue. If I hit export, it's going to export in Premiere, which means I can't work on anything else while it's exporting. So I'm actually going to hit Q, and it's going to send it to a different program called the Media Encoder. And I've got a few other projects encoding right now, but you can see it was added to my queue. And if I hit play, it'll resume the one that I was working on. And when it finishes that, it'll move on to the piano. So I can let that work while I continue working here. So I'll let those encode, and let's just hit Command S or Control S for saving. We want to save our project frequently just in case something bad happens and the program crashes. So now let's move on. Let's say we're getting into a little more advanced stuff, but let's say I wanted to do a multi-camera video instead of a single camera. Well, I recorded 4 different camera angles here, so it's a pretty similar process. So I'm going to first go back to my project panel here where I have all my files, and I'm going to click on the sequence bin, and I'm going to hit Command N or Control N, and that's going to bring up the new sequence panel, which can be also found by going to File, New Sequence. I'm going to name this Sample Piano Recording Multi-Camera. So you can see a new tab came up here, and we still have our other sequence that if we want to refer back to it is still right here. But for here, we want a new sequence, just something clean to work on, a fresh canvas. So for this, this is going to be a little bit of duplicate work for just the beginning, but I'm going to take my wide shot initially, and we'll say keep existing settings again, and we'll just do this really quickly, where I will get the audio lined up. Let's mute this. It's one frame too early, so I'll just move it one frame over. Great, so that one's lined up, but we've got 3 other cameras too. So let's move the audio back up to the top. I'm going to once again unlink. I'm done with this audio, so I can get rid of that. But now I've got some other camera angles. So let's bring in this camera angle. This camera is also, it's the same type of camera, so it's also recorded in 5.1. So we can double click again, open it up. And I should bring the audio down so I can see more easily. Okay, so now what we want to make sure we do is not move this audio because it's already lined up. The audio is lined up with the first camera. So all I want to do is make sure to move this file to line up with, and you can see I need to move a little bit further to the left, but I can't. So what I need to do is click and drag to have the clip start a little bit later. Now I can move it a little bit more, and I can see where that clap is happening, so it's going to be the same thing. Looks like this and this are the same sound, so I'm going to grab there and drag approximately where that clap is. Great, and I can see her hand was a little bit covered, but right there is where the clap happens. So let's move it just a couple more frames over. There we go. The other thing we can do is actually use video now instead of the audio. So if I click on this little eyeball, I can toggle if I see this layer or not. And we can see, okay, that's when her hands first connected on the 2009 frame. So let me untoggle this, and great, same moment. So now I know these 2 cameras are in sync 100% accurately, and I can once again right click and say unlink and get rid of that audio file. And now I'll bring in my third camera. I want to make sure that I don't, you can see that, there we go. I just want to make sure that if I release right now, you'll see that the audio will actually delete the audio that I want to use. So let's undo that, and let's just make sure that it's being dragged into a layer that we don't need. At this point, I can move the audio up. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to see where that audio starts. It looks to me like this right here and this are the same, so I'm going to do the same thing, drag over there, get it pretty close. And we know 2009 was the frame where her hands connected, so we're already off, but let's count how many frames. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 frames. So we just want to back that up 4 frames, and it should be 2009 where her hands connect. Yes. Great, so that file is now connected. I can do the same thing, right click, unlink, delete the audio file, and we've got one more angle to work with. Let's drag that audio up so it's right next to it. And same thing. And you see how much better it is to slate this when you're especially when you're working with multiple camera angles. It makes it so much easier to just make sure everything is lined up. 2009, hands connect, good. I'm gonna right click, unlink one last time, and delete that audio file. Great, so we've deleted all of our camera audio and we're just left with this audio. Now, we've already, at this point, we've already edited this audio once. So instead of redoing all of that, I'm gonna take my extracted audio and drag it in. Now, what I should have done originally is edited this audio before I cut it, but I didn't do that. So I'm gonna just line it up manually by doing the same thing, zooming in and just making sure that the audio starts at the exact same moment, which it does in that case. So now I know that this is lined up correctly. I can delete the unedited audio and drag the edited audio up to the audio 1 line, and we've got our edited audio and all 4 cameras synced. Great, so I don't need anything to the left of this video-wise, so I'm gonna hit C, go to my razor tool. Now if I hit Shift, you'll see that a line appears. This is gonna cut every single layer at the same place. So I'm holding Shift still, and if I click, you see it cuts all 4 video layers. Now I can click and drag, highlight those, and just delete everything all at the same time. Great, now I can zoom back out by hitting the minus key, grab everything, drag to the left, and I can figure out where I want to start this video. Now I've got 4 different options to choose from, and I can preview all those by double clicking on any given file. So we know this angle pretty well. I've got a nice shot of her face. I've got a very good close-up of her hands, and then I've got this kind of over-the-shoulder mid shot. And that's pretty nice. Why don't we start with that mid shot? I think that's a good one. So that's, you'll notice the top layer. Whatever is on top is what we're seeing. So if I toggle that off, you'll see it goes to the next layer and the next layer, etc. So I want to start with this. So I'm going to grab these other files and just move them in a little bit so they don't overlap, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'm going to go to Effects. I want to add my film dissolve, and I'm going to add my constant gain, and again I want to make the film dissolve 30 seconds or 30 frames or 1 second, and let's move that in so it starts a little closer. Let's preview that. That looks really nice. Now you'll see if I hadn't moved those frames in, you'll see what happens when the film dissolve happens. We actually get that dissolve between the two, which is what we want to do now that we have a multi-camera shot. We want to do that later on to transition from one camera to the next. But for the beginning, we want to make sure nothing is underneath that dissolve so that it goes from black to that first angle. Okay, so from here, what I might do is just listen through. I know that I don't want to switch cameras too often. This is a little bit of a slower piece. So I want to go like at least 15 or so seconds in and listen to the phrasing. Okay, so that might be a nice moment during that silence there before she switches and gets piano again. That might be a nice spot to transition. So I'm going to hit C, get my razor tool, and I'm going to cut right there. Great, and then if I hit V to go back to my selection tool, I can go to the edge of this clip that I just cut, and I can drag that out a little bit. We won't need that clip for a little bit. Okay, so right below that is this camera angle, but I think I want to go to a different angle. These are similar angles. You can see it's a little bit more centered, but it's pretty close to this. So I want to try something just a little bit different. So I'm going to drag this clip out also. Oh, this might be nice to just go to this clip of her face. It's a nice different angle. So right now I just have a cut. Jump cut is what it's called, which means there's no transition. And that works nicely, but let's say I wanted to add a fade. I can, once again, drag that film dissolve. And that's nice too. I think either work in this case. Let's do a little bit of a slower. Yeah, that works nicely. And so I might stick on this for a little bit. And then we have another moment of silence. This could be a good place to now cut to our close-up shot. So I'm going to drag it there, and I hit Shift D to add that transition automatically. And that works really nicely. And now here, the music starts to grow a little bit, right there. So at that moment, I might say, oh, that'd be a nice time to cut to a wide shot. So I'm gonna make sure that nothing is over top of that wide shot. And let's add another film dissolve and see how that looks. I want it to happen kind of right with that music. Maybe even a little bit before it. Yeah, there we go. So I think that looks really nice, cutting to it right before she hits that chord. And I would just go through the entire solo, which is to about here. I can get rid of everything to the right. And go through it, editing the cameras as I see fit that relate to the music. And then I would export the same way once I'm done, just by grabbing everything that I need to. And again, it's Command M or Control M if you're on Windows to bring up your export settings. And then you can choose where you want to save and just hit Q or export. And that's how you would create a multi-camera recording. That's all I have for today. If you like this class and are interested, I'm currently building a course that will dive into all of these subjects in much more detail. The course is designed for musicians and how to record professional quality videos of yourself and other musicians, regardless of budget. The course will be released later this year, but if you're interested, you can sign up for a waitlist today at microtonemedia.com/courses. Thanks again to Dino and Sangmi for including me in Piano Celebration Week, and best of luck in your video creation.